Welcome back to another edition of StarCraft 2 Team Strategy. So what we're going to be looking at is kind of cheese defense, as I like to call it. In this game we're going to be checking out a game with mass marines and kind of what you have to do in order to stop it. This first game we're going to fail a little bit, but in the second game that I'm going to show you guys what we should do right if we want to hold any kind of mass marine pressure. So the first thing is obviously scouting it quickly and determining that that is indeed what they're doing, because mass marines, regardless of the map, it'll almost always hit about 5:30 into the game. So I'm going to, once again highlight and pause the game once we hit about 5:30 and show you guys, where mass marine players will probably be on the map if they end up moving out. So in the meantime, just kind of checking around, and this is the incident right here. When I scouted this third barracks, we knew, alright, they're doing some kind of mass marine. Usually when, two Terrans do double barracks openings, they're going to do it anyways. So if you end up scouting, double barracks, and then you have, 14 pool or something like that, you should prepare yourself for some kind of mass marine pressure at the beginning of the game. Because it's not often that you're going to have two Terrans on the other team that neither of them get gas. In this case, I'm able to keep my probe alive for a pretty long time, and I'm able to keep looking around and be like, okay, he's got 3 barracks too, it's mass marine. So I'm like, well, we should be able to get our 4-gate up in time. Well, the kind of problem here is that at the very least, we're each going to get 1 warp in done, assuming that our warp gate finishes right on time. And I started mine a little bit late, and that's going to end up being a bit of a problem. But even if both of us got our first warp in done, we're not always going to be able to hold it then. And of course, some of you might be like, well, why'd you block off the front like this? Well, for instance, if this Zerg went a 10 pool, we need to make sure that we have, a narrow place to defend. Because if our partner does a 14 pool, his Lings will be out, but he's not going to have speed as quickly. And the last thing we need is just a bunch of Lings running around in our base, kind of harassing our workers and everything else. So probably the best opening is to make sure that one guy goes, gate cyber build, the other one goes gate forge build. So, as you'll see, it's 5:30 into the game. Now, if I did a quick as possible 4-gate, my warp gate will be done right around 5:40, maybe 5:45, something like that. And it would have been pretty much able to finish up before my cyber core ends up dying here. But I ended up missing 1 chrono boost, or I started warp gate a little bit late here, so if I was able to keep warping in sentries and stalkers, yeah, we maybe hold here, but the point is, both of us lost our cyber cores because we had it in part of our wall. Now, if we had, 2 cannons here, like 1 cannon here and 1 cannon here, we'd probably still both have a sentry, which means we can prevent the Lings from getting inside. And one of us would have, the 2 stalkers that we had right here, and the other one would probably have a couple zealots, which you can basically just kind of plug the hole or just kind of keep back till they end up breaking in. But these Marines, there'd probably be at least half as many Marines as there are now. One of our players would end up having his warp gate done and would lose his cyber core, most likely, as a result. So even with some relatively decent Stalker micro here, it's just not quite enough to basically hold off all these Marines. Yeah, we end up killing these, but with all the reinforcements, we just are simply too far behind in order to be able to make a comeback into this game. There's just too many units. And my Zerg partner here already lost a whole bunch of drones anyways, so there wasn't much we could do in that situation. Now, if we had done a gate forge opening, we probably would have been able to defend that. So in the next game I'm going to show you, it's 2 Zergs on our team, and we have a Terran partner. Now, he doesn't go a gate forge opening, obviously, because he's not Protoss, but he does get bunkers up early to help us defend this kind of early pressure. So I'll show you guys what you can do if you end up having 2 Zergs and you're trying to defend kind of mass marine pressure like this. Okay, as promised, here's game 2. In this case, we have 2 Zergs. So we already know at this point, based on the loading screen, that they have basically, I think it was 3 Terrans in this game. Yep. So we already saw that they had 3 Terrans. Now, when you see a team that has all one race, you can kind of expect that there's going to be a little bit of cheese. But either way, the best opening to do against, say, 3 Terrans or a team that has no Zergs on them, if you have 2 Zergs, you should go a 15 hatch for one player, and then the other one should get like a 14 pool, 14 gas. This is going to get you the best economic opening possible against non-Zerg opponents. So one of your players obviously is going to have a little bit delayed speed, which isn't going to be too big of an issue because the other player, even against proxies, is going to have enough units out on the map to kind of at least scout it early or buy you a little bit of time. So in this case, somehow I ended up scouting as a Zerg. I don't understand why. Well, I actually know why, because my partners are lazy. But when I end up scouting, well, can't get any information from the first two. But when I come over to this third player here, I'm able to see, oh, great, you know, they're going Mass Marine. So, just like in the last game, it's going to hit somewhere right around about 5:30 into the game. That's essentially when they're going to be at least moving out, if not halfway across the map. So, as a Zerg player, that means you need to stop, you know, you really need to start making lings maybe at 4:30 or even, say, maybe at least by 5 minutes. If you do wait till 5 minutes, you really need to have at least one spine crawler, maybe two up by that point. Because spine crawlers and bunkers are essentially the way that you're going to hold early pressure from Mass Marine. Because most teams are going to wait till they have somewhere between about 5 to 8 Marines, and then they'll push out at that point. So at 5 minutes, he's got about 8 Marines here. And my partner ended up building a bunker for each of us. I probably could have, as you can see, I could have afforded another spine crawler, and that would have been probably the better decision to make here. But also, I ended up forgetting my speed, which is not a good thing. But at this point, I'm just going to keep injecting with my queens. Let's see about economy here. Well, both my, I ended up having a pretty good number of workers right here. But economy's not too important. The biggest thing is being able to hold this off. So spine crawler is just going to buy a little bit of time until I can get enough lings massed up, because you really need to make sure that you have enough lings to get it surround. Because if you can't get it surround on the Marines, they're going to sit there and kite backwards the whole time, and that's what's going to make it cost efficient for them. But we're able to hold this pressure pretty easily, and shortly after this point, since we were able to hold the pressure, we just ended up making a ton of drones. And the thing you need to check for after you hold some kind of early pressure like this is see if they expand. Because if they expand right away, there's almost no way they're going to be able to hold it, assuming that you know, make a couple workers and then get your economy going again, and then start making mass units. So I made sure this time around I ended up getting speed. And since my partner was going for a Marine tank, which is a great choice against mass Marine players, I'd say you usually want to open up at least 2 barracks before you get to the factory, though, just because you need to have units out to defend your partners, because siege mode and siege tanks won't be out in time to really defend kind of early Marine pressure like this. But he was able to get a couple of siege tanks out, and then all that my partner and I are going to do is just keep massing Ling and Baneling, because that's what's going to be really effective against all these Marines out here, especially since they don't even have stim yet. Of course, we're getting a little bit too overzealous and kind of going in there a little far. Really should just kind of push with the tanks and defend them, and then just keep leapfrogging the tanks up. But not really that big of a blunder. And even though economy is somewhat even at this point in the game, it's not too big of a deal when you have people going Mass Marine like this, because their tech is so delayed. And you have to remember that a lot of your investment at this point in the game is actually in tech, so that's the reason why you're not necessarily going to be behind. Oh, and I even have Baneling speed at this point in the game, so as long as we keep massing Lings here, we're going to be able to pretty much crush this push. And if it wasn't for some drops that killed a couple Overlords, I probably wouldn't have let my money get so high at this point. But hopefully you guys can see that stopping Marine pressure early really comes down to, 1, you gotta scout it, and then 2, you need defensive structures up to buy time. If, for instance, it's a separated map and they keep going in my base and I'm barely holding, the biggest thing that your partners need to do is kind of pick off reinforcements. I showed this in another game where you're dealing with proxies. In this case, it was just mass Marines without doing a proxy, but the same, you need to deal with it in the same way, which is just making sure you cut off reinforcements, because small groups of Marines are very easy to surround and pick off. And oftentimes when they're just rallied from somebody's base, they don't even notice that they're getting picked off immediately. Well, hopefully you guys will feel a little bit more confident when you go on ladder and you have to face, Mass Marine and other kind of cheesy strategies. Because I've got a couple videos that I'll be uploading. I'd say I already uploaded one about how to deal with proxies. This one, obviously, how to deal with Mass Marine, and I'll be uploading a couple more on how to deal with cannon rushes and also early pulls, which should give you a little bit more insight into, how to make 3v3 and 4v4 more fun. Because I commonly find that the reason people dislike 3v3 and 4v4 games is because it really just, sometimes they'll end up playing a couple teams where they'll do cheesy strategies like this and they just can't figure out how to stop it. But hopefully, after you guys have watched these videos, you know exactly what to do from this point forward. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll have more videos for you guys soon.